Welcome to Higher Self Mastery, the podcast for women ready to leave behind who they were told to be and remember who they truly are. I'm your host, Dami Schumacher. This is your space to come home to yourself, to honor the inner pull for more truth and more depth, and more meaning as you enter a new chapter of your life. Together, we're reframing midlife crisis into the midlife magic that it actually is, because this is your rebirth. Through soulful conversations and spiritual tools, you'll reconnect to your truth and reclaim your voice and live the life that your soul came here for. So let's begin. Hello and welcome back. Thank you for joining me today. So I want to begin by asking you a question. Do you live your life by design or default? Because whichever one it is, you don't get to choose whether you create life, whether you co-create life with the universe. That is happening all the time, as long as you are breathing. I've mentioned this before in one of the previous episodes, how we are co-creators with the universe. And I hope that for those of you who have been listening in over the past few weeks, past couple of months to the different episodes that I've covered, that you're beginning to see that there is a thread that weaves through all of this work and how it's all interconnected. And in today's episode, we're going to be bringing a lot of those concepts that I've touched on or talked about and start to put them together in this particular context of how you create your life. And what I mean by that is that as long as you are breathing, you are generating a vibrational frequency, and therefore you are sending out a signal to the universe, telling it, instructing it for what you want to create in your life, what it is that you desire, what it is that you want more of, because you magnetize the frequency back to you that you are vibrating. And that is how the universe is a co-creator in your life with you. So you're doing half the work and the universe is doing the other half. But the universe just responds to what it is that you're already vibrating, the frequency at which you're vibrating. So it's really in our hands and within our power to change the trajectory of this, for it to unfold in a way that we desire. But this requires consciously carving out a dream, to consciously have a vision, a North Star for what it is you are heading towards, where it is you would like to go, rather than just coasting through life and allowing each and every day to just unfold without putting any particular conscious effort or intention behind what it is that actually unfolds for you. And some people may say, well, what's wrong with that? You might be one of those individuals that says, what's wrong with that? And I've known many people in my life, especially individuals in the spiritual world, who are perhaps particularly good at surrendering to the universe, surrendering to the higher powers and just saying whatever is the universe's will, whatever is God's will, I will follow that path. But there is a danger in that as well, in that they don't take any conscious action or consciously decide for themselves where it is they want to head, and just put all of that expectation and role of creation into the universe's hand. But whether you want the universe to fully take over for you or not, it cannot. That's not how this works. You will always remain a co-creator. So if you are not intentionally deciding for yourself what you want in your life, then you're living by default. And when we live by default, what that is in essence means is that you're living by all the old patterns that you've previously experienced in your life, and you're going to put them on repeat and on a recycle, right? And you're just going to end up seeing more of what you've already had. Now, in some areas of your life, and many of you might say in many areas of your life, or the majority of your life, you don't mind that because you're happy with what you've got. But I'm sure there's many of you out there who are thinking, whoa, hold on a second, Tommy. I don't want more of what I've already experienced in my health, because I want to see a vast improvement in my health and my vitality and my wellness. I feel like my dog's just walked in. Hello, sausage. Sorry. And maybe you're thinking to yourself that I don't want more of what I've seen in my career, success. I would like to be able to move up in the ladder. I want to achieve more. I'm more ambitious. I want to achieve a lot more, have more of an impact. So hang on a second, Army. Like, living and recreating more of what I've already experienced is not okay by me. And I get it. And I think for the most part, most of you will say this. Most of you want something different. Most of you want something better. Most of you want something more, because that is in our inherent nature as human beings, to always be striving for that next level. Even if we are living a very abundant and rich and healthy life currently, if our current reality is a dream that we could have only imagined about and thought about 10 years ago, and it only lived in our dreams and imagination, and now it is our reality, it is inherent in our nature to now say, what next? So what else can I achieve? What else can I have? And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I encourage it, right? Because there's growth in that. There's momentum in that. The worst thing you can do is remain stagnant and stuck and still, because that usually is going to breed and harbor resentment and pain and dissatisfaction and all of those kind of low-level ways of living, and it no longer becomes living, more survival. As humans, we want to live, we want to thrive, we want to enjoy. And in order to do that, you're not going to enjoy the results that you're seeing in your life if you're allowing yourself and just coasting through life and living by default and just repeating what you've already had in your past and repeating that for the next 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years or beyond. It's going to start to irk you. It's going to start to feel suffocating. You're going to start to make it about yourself, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do something more? Why am I not achieving more? And more often than not, the reason this happens is because a lot of us just don't realize that it requires having a vision, a dream. You don't have to be outrageously ambitious, but you have to be a little bit ambitious or a little bit imaginative and push yourself to grow for something more, to grow to the next level. Because it's in that next level of becoming, in our growth, is where the satisfaction is where the fulfillment is. And the pursuit in that purpose is what we enjoy and find our joy, and how we shape ourselves and how we come to see ourselves and really really start to harden and carve out those characteristics and qualities in ourselves that we then look back and say, I'm really proud of that. And those are the things that ultimately we're all striving for. But what that looks like for each and every one of us is going to be a little bit different. And how that shapes out is going to be different and unique to each and every one of us. So I invite you, if this is something that you don't already do or haven't really sat down and done it with real intention and purpose, this is a beautiful time of the year to do this. At the moment, as we are slowing down and going into the colder, darker months of the year, we're soon approaching Samhain, and that's really the turning point in many ways as well, sort of the cusp of autumn and winter for many. And in these darker, quieter moments where I've spoken so much about and encouraged you to carve out more rituals for yourself, carve out more sacred time for yourself to slow down, to become a little bit more still, to come back to those things that really, really nurture you. In those moments, however you see fit to do it, I recommend sitting down with pen and paper and journaling. There's so much power in writing this out. But if you prefer, get a voice recorder out on your phone and just press record and drop into yourself and start just to speak, start to write down what it is you want to create in the next 3 months, but also in the next 6 months, all the way up until the spring equinox. Because again, we look to nature to guide us. And what is nature actually doing right now? As the leaves fall away, this is something I read recently, and I didn't know this myself, but and it makes perfect sense when it all came together. But where the leaves actually fall away, those little nodes, that's already the seed and the beginnings of the spring bud that's going to come out in 6 months' time. The little nodes and little modules that stick out on the different trees, and they look different on all the different trees. Might just be a little bump on the bark. It might be a little furry bump or a dark bump. But those little points where the leaves start to fall off, that's where the new sprouts, that's where the new buds will form in spring in 6 months' time. And what the trees are doing at the moment is holding on to that energy and seeding things. So this is a time for seeding our vision, our dreams, our ideas, not just specifically this week, but as we move into these darker, colder months. Don't wait until December the 31st to sit down and give yourself time to figure out what it is you want to create in 2026. That work begins now. Take your time with it. Maybe you sit down and work on it maybe for 20 minutes or half an hour every single week. That could become a ritual that you do, and you just add to this written journal or add to this voice memo. Or if you want, do it in 1 or 2 sittings, if you prefer to stay in the flow of things, or maybe you want to give yourself a little journal prompt for different areas of your life. So do it as you see fit. There is no right or wrong way. But I encourage you to really take this time as we move into these darker, quieter months to really start to seed what it is that you want to see come to fruition in spring. And the sooner you do this, please don't wait until December the 31st to complete this list. I encourage you to do this ASAP, but to the best of your abilities, of course, as well. Because once you know what that looks like, what it is you want to create, what it is you want to harvest, so to speak, or see come to fruition and come to life in spring, now is the time to also then put into place those practical action steps that are going to support you. So, for example, I'm just thinking for myself here, from my business, of some of the things that I might end up doing or want to see. In spring, I might say, you know what, I really want to do some more live events because I really enjoyed them this year. So I want to start getting bookings from spring of next year. And I want to, invite in 5 to 6 speaking engagements for 2026 for the spring and summer months. That's what I want to do. Now, it's all fair and well to set that intention and hold that manifestation and put that message out to the universe. That is a part of it, yes. But what is the aligned action alongside that? Well, the aligned action alongside that could be that I go out and do research to find out where it is I want to speak, who do I want to speak with, which organizations, which companies, which festivals, whatever that might be. And then to reach out to these individuals or find out what the application process is and, put this into the diary. Okay, so their application doesn't open till January. So put that in my calendar and have that ready to go. And in January, I can press send and it's done. Or maybe I'm looking to start a new branch of my business. I'm trying to think what something new could be. I don't think I'm ready for anything new just yet because I had so many new things this year and I really just want to pour myself into that a little bit more and grow that bit more. But say, for example, I hadn't started this podcast, right? And my dream was to start the podcast in spring of next year. So some of the things that I could be doing right now is learning all the tech stuff because there is a lot of tech stuff. Like, where do I source the music? What is it that I want to say in the intro, in the outro? Who is it that I'm serving? What does the imagery look like or the graphics look like? And all of those kind of things. What are some of the topics that I might cover? And start mapping it all out. Right? I don't have to release it. I'm not putting it out there. I may start recording some of those episodes, but really it's about building the momentum and just getting all the back office work in place. So then when spring does arrive, I am ready. I am equipped in my skills. I am equipped in my knowledge. I am equipped with all the actions that I need to have taken. So I can literally press play or go or send. And things can start to move and be shared out into the world, so to speak. So those are the kind of things you want to be doing as you are seeding these intentions. But let's go back a step even more, because the dream that you set out for yourself, the vision that you set out for yourself, the things that you would like to see unfurl in the next 3 months, but also in the next 6 months, and also what happens beyond those next 6 months. You need to make sure that you have done some work around your core values and making sure that these dreams are aligned with what it is that really matters to you. What are your core values? And I have spoken about this before, I think in the manifestation series. But that is something that's really important to check it back in with, because it's no good having a dream that is purely driven by other people's expectations or driven by society conditioning around what you're being fed and told, and you've bought into this belief system that these are the things that will make me happy and I'll feel fulfilled and I'll feel joyful and I'll feel successful once I've attained them, once I've accomplished them. But they actually don't even come from you. Because the bottom line is they won't deliver those outcomes if they don't come from your heart and your soul and the things that actually really matter to you. And worse still, if they don't align with your values and they begin to ask you to compromise your core values, you're going to begin to resent and hate the process, just even getting there. So it will all just be for nothing. And how many times I have seen people do this, and I'm sure we've all got examples of it in our own lives as well, where we've pushed and strived and worked really hard towards something, and then only to get to the end of it and have the reward in our hands and be like, oh, this is a bit of an anticlimax. This is not quite what I thought it was going to be. That's because it's actually not really aligned with what you really want and who you really are. It was driven from false beliefs, beliefs that don't belong to you. Sometimes we just have to go through these motions to realize this and learn this in ourselves. And everything is valuable. All of these experiences are valuable, if anything, to tell us what we don't want. So if you are somebody who identifies with what I've just said there, like, that's okay, right? And even if you do know all this and you do try to play the game by the rules and do it correctly, so to speak, there's every chance that you may still fall into those little traps without you realizing it. And that's okay, because if that happens, and that is happening to you, then there are lessons still to be learned that you need to grow through before you can attain what it is you're aiming for. So in this place of visioning, in this place of dreaming, I'm going to encourage you to really push yourself out of your comfort zone. And this is really important because I said right at the beginning, are you living your life by design or default? Are you creating your results by design or default? Now, it's not that much better to intentionally create a life by design. And when I say by design, I mean you are consciously aware of what it is you're working towards. There's no good working towards a life by design if that life by design is only taking you half a step forward, or not even taking you any steps further forward in your own becoming and in who you are. And I doubt anybody who's serious about doing this work would do that. But I just want to make this very, very clear, because before you go away and, you might be keen and ready to do the journaling and map out this vision, and you might spend the next 2 weeks doing this. But I would hate for you to then map out a vision that is almost a carbon copy of what you already have, but just a slightly different shade. What I'm encouraging you to do and inviting you to do is to really stretch yourself and grow. Where is it that you start to feel a little bit uncomfortable? Because that's where the gold is. I'm inviting you, and I'm sure I'll do a separate episode on this in greater detail, but I'm inviting you to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where the growth is. That's where the reward is. So in the different areas of your life that you start to map out and plan for yourself, I want you to really see what's stretching me. What is it that I truly desire that just stretches me beyond where I am right now? We talked about this in the manifestation series. It's all very good having that long-term vision, and I encourage you to do that as well. And again, it's the perfect time of the year to do this. So if you've got the time and you want to, do the big visioning and then reverse engineer it. But as an interim, I encourage you to have this vision as well, which is just the next step. Because if there is too much of a gap between where you are right now and what's on your piece of paper and what's on your dream, you're not going to convince yourself and believe it. And if you don't believe it, you're not going to be vibrating at the energy and the frequency to call it in, because that's what it's really about. So I invite you to dream beyond what you currently have. Dream into something that is actually going to stretch you. And yes, there's going to be a little bit of anxiety probably around that. Yes, you'll probably come up against your old limiting beliefs as well before you can actually push through. Maybe you'll lean into some procrastination and come up with excuses why that's not possible, how you can't do it now, how it's not going to be feasible for by the time it is spring, or why you can't do the action steps that are required or the training that's required to upskill yourself before that time. But when you catch yourself saying these kind of things, remember back to last episode that how we speak to ourselves is so important and also so telling. Such a big window into our mind and our belief system. That's what you want to be able to do, is say, oh, hold on a second. No. I'm not going to repeat that narrative. This is the narrative. So then you would pattern interrupt and replace it with a narrative that affirms and supports the dream that you have mapped out for yourself. And why do I say to do this? Because this is what the work is really about. Yes, the goal and achieving those goals and achieving those dreams, whatever it is you've laid out for yourself, all of that is rewarding as long as it's aligned for you. And all of that is rewarding when you achieve it 100% and when you get to that end point. But the real reward is who you become as you go through that journey, in the process. What you learn about yourself, the resilience that you actually have, how you are so much more capable, how you have so much more courage, boldness, intelligence, wisdom, talent, resourcefulness. All of this, all of these things, the push and the growth, that's the real reward. And it's only when you reach for something that is just beyond your comfort zone can you have this push and scrape and growth. It is challenging by nature, but the rewards on the other side far outweigh any challenges that you may face along the way. And if you don't reach for something beyond what you already have, I'm almost tempted to say, then what's the point of even doing the visioning? What's the point of even doing the manifestation? Because one, if your manifestations and your dreams and your visions are so big, but you're not willing to do the work to get to them, they're just going to make you feel worse about yourself. They're going to start to sow seeds of doubt in yourself about how capable you are, because they're too big, or they're too out of your reach, or you've got the vision but you haven't got the drive and the understanding that all of those action steps and the grit and the challenge and the uncomfortableness to get to that is a prerequisite in order to achieve them. Yet you're not willing to do those more challenging, mucky parts to get there. Or you've created a vision for yourself which is pretty much a carbon copy of what you already have. Well, in that case, you may as well not bother to some degree, because you'll be recreating that anyway. So save yourself the time. But I don't believe any of you who are listening here are that person, right? You do want something more. Otherwise, I don't see why you'd be tuned into these episodes in this podcast. Because this podcast ultimately at the core is all about growth. It's about creating a life that brings you joy and fulfillment. And to offer you tools and ways in which you can do this. So sit down, carve out a little bit of time for yourself to do this visioning work. Make sure it aligns with who you really are, with what really matters to you, your core values at the moment as they stand. And then take the actions that are required. And do this in all areas of your life. Do it for your vocation, your business, do it for your health, do it for your relationships, do it for your money, your time, your freedom, all the different areas. The more detail you can go into to gain clarity around what it is you're aiming towards and have a clear vision of what it is at the end where you're headed towards, then the easier it becomes to put into place the action steps that you need to take. Irrespective of whether you are a specific manifestor or a non-specific manifestor, you can still do that. You may, if you're a non-specific manifestor, you may do that by getting really, really clear on the essence and the energy and the feeling of what it is you want to accomplish, but not necessarily the details of what it might actually look like. And yes, of course, hold all of this with an open hand, because the universe always has our highest good in our interest. So if you hold on too tightly to your dream in a very, very specific way, you are not allowing space and room for the universe to then actually provide something to you that might be better for you. So have the vision, hold your intention and your attention on there. Do the work, but hold it with an open hand. And then finally, surrender the how. So many people get caught up in the how. Oh, I want this and I want that, and it's all very exciting and it looks great. And if you've never done this work before, like writing down and visioning your future, whether that's 6 months or 5 years ahead, or in, all areas of your life or one area of your life, if you've never done this before, I just would like you to know, and even if you have done this before, but maybe no one's explained this to you, it is perfectly normal to go through a roller coaster of emotions. Usually, not always, but usually the pattern that you tend to see is this expansion and joy as you start to do the visioning. It may even start with sadness, because maybe you find it difficult to vision for yourself because you or somebody else at some point in your life has squashed your imagination and never allowed yourself to dream or have something for yourself that matters to you. So there may be some sadness in the beginning, but once you break through that and once you start doing the visioning, you will be overcome with this joy and this expansive feeling in yourself of like, oh my gosh, and this is exciting, and I want this, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and get really carried away in what it is you want to create. And that's beautiful, and it's so expansive. And then, but when you finish that, there can be another plummet in your emotion, because then you look at it and you go, oh, wowzers, that looks so far-fetched from my current reality. That's never going to happen. What was I thinking? That was just a childish activity. Yes, I had fun doing it, but now I feel really pretty crap because I'm never going to achieve that. How on earth am I going to get that? How is that even possible? How? Know that this is okay. Know that this is just part of the journey. And I also invite you finally to put the how on hold, because the how is not your business. The how is the part that the universe takes care of. Remember, you're a co-creator, not a full 100% creator. You help to drive the direction of where you go. And if you're really beautifully connected with the universe, even that is downloaded to you by the universe, that guidance. And it's this beautiful dance that you do with the universe. And then once you put your order in, once you put your instructions in, the universe takes care of the how. Your job is to be energetically aligned so that you are holding the right frequency and really able to magnetize it in. Because if you go into fear, if you go into doubt, if you go into all those contractive frequencies, well, then you're going to block what it is you're trying to call in. And it's your job to be aligned enough to receive. And I've spoken about this in previous episodes, how you can become a clearer vessel for receiving what it is you desire. So that's your job, and the universe will take care of the how. You need to be open to opportunities. You need to be setting those intentions and being aware and not just passing things off as chance, not rejecting gifts of opportunities, gifts of collaborations, gifts of connections. If somebody introduces you to somebody else in a chance meeting, don't just be dismissive. Be curious. Who are they? What do they do? Get to know them. I met a lady at one of the fairs that I did this summer, and I stopped to talk to her because most of you won't know this. This is a different side of this is a small little branch of what I do, of my business, or a separate little business, should I say, and that is I'm a tropic ambassador. And maybe I'll save that story for a separate episode one day, perhaps. And I stopped to talk to this lady at one of the wellness fairs that I was at because she's a tropic ambassador, and I saw her stall, and I happened to have one of my tropic bags on my shoulder, which I was carrying all my things in. And so I walked over to her. I went, "Hello, fellow tropic ambassador." And we connected and we smiled and we started chatting all things tropic, who she was. I'd never met her before or anything like that, and so on. And so we got talking, and we were talking for about 10, 15 minutes, and we were just open. We were both really beautifully open. And yes, the conversation started with one subject, but by the time we finished speaking, after the 15 or maybe 20 minutes that we had been conversing, our conversation had completely evolved. By the end of it, she was asking me whether I'd be open to delivering some workshops and speaking at a women's conference within the company that she works for in her day job. Yes, of course I want to be a part of that. 100% I want to be a part of that. But it was about being open in the most unexpected ways and trusting that the energy felt right, the energy felt aligned, and just without any expectation, just allowing that to unfold. Because what the universe knew about our potential collaboration could never have crossed my mind. I'd never met this woman before in my life. I didn't know what she does in her day job, or that it could ever possibly come back and serve me in what I do in my main arm of my work through this coaching business and my speaking work that I do. But I was open to it. And so it came round. I gave it time and I allowed the how to unfold. I'd already just put my intention out there that I want to do more and more of these speaking engagements because they are so fulfilling. I get so much out of them, and so does my audience. So yes, I want to do more of them right now. It aligns for me. That's it. That was my intention. That was my manifestation. That was my wish, my dream, my vision. And then the how, the universe is taking care of. The action steps in between in this particular case was just me talking. And I say networking in the loosest way because I wasn't talking to her to get something. And maybe we'll do an episode on this as well, perhaps. But I've come to redefine networking over the last few years. For a long time, I really despised the word. And when there were so-called networking events, I would run in the opposite direction, because it felt so superficial so selfish, and just not an environment that I want to be a part of. But networking can also just be this very natural, inquisitive conversation that doesn't have an expectation at the end of it, but just an openness to who can I help, how can I serve. And before we go, I also will just share with you as well, when I talk about, like I mentioned, like get uncomfortable. This is the hard part. This is where most of you will get stuck. This is where I get stuck, right? If you listen to my episode a couple of weeks ago where I share that honest, raw truth of my transformation and my journey that I'm going through right now, just one area that I'm going through right now, it's uncomfortable, right? But that's where the work is, in that uncomfortable area. And what comes to mind is I was scrolling through my phone looking for photos, I'm guessing, because I was in the photo section. And I saw a video of myself and I didn't recognize it. And I thought, oh, what's this? When did I record this and what am I doing? So I pressed play and I started weeping. I'm weeping in the video, and as I'm listening to myself, I started weeping again because I honestly forgot that I had recorded that. And I honestly forgot that little video blog that I did for myself was for precisely that reason, to capture the raw emotions and gratitude that I was feeling in that moment. And what it was a little video blog to myself on the day that my podcast went live. And in essence, what I'm saying in that video is how it had been a dream of mine from 4 years ago to start a podcast. How I really believed that I would have launched and released my podcast sooner. How many obstacles I've had to overcome within myself to get to the point where I was finally able to press play or release, record, and send out the podcast into the world. How on a number of occasions over the years, I truly believed it just wasn't going to happen. And that whole time, I never took my eye off my dream and my vision. And that whole time, to get to the end result of actually launching my podcast, was growth after growth after growth, and tears and challenges and uncomfortableness. So much uncomfortableness that I had to go through to then press release and publish. That's the word I'm looking for, not release, publish. And put it out there into the world. And now that I'm 2.5 months into my podcast, like I think, I don't know off the top of my head, this is like episode 17, I think. And it's been about 2.5 months that this has been going. It feels so natural. It feels so effortless. I almost want to say easy. There's still tech things on the back end that, still needs ironing out sometimes, but for the most part, it's smooth. And all of that worry, all of that stress that led to get to the point where I could publish my launch and launch my podcast was so front end heavy in the uncomfortableness, but the rewards of what I am enjoying now far outweigh that. I can't even measure. They don't compare. I know just from conversations that I've had with individuals, people that I've met who have written in or left comments, or people I've happened to meet at the live events that I did over summer, that they're tuning in, and how much value that they're getting from listening to these podcasts, and how they're so timely, and how they just really needed to hear what I said that particular week on that particular day that they happened to listen to it. And that's what it was all about. to serve people en masse and be able to reach more people. And I'm doing it. But I wouldn't have been able to sit here and say that and do this and be here, and you wouldn't be listening to my voice if I didn't go through the uncomfortableness, if I didn't stay firm in my vision, if I didn't keep checking in that that vision aligned and was right for what I want to create right now and what I want to do. All of those things had to factor in, and it was a journey and a process. But you can get there in the end. So let that be a little few words of encouragement to you. So whatever it is you're mapping out for yourself for spring of 2026, whatever is in your vision for the next 3 months, whatever is in your vision for the next 6 months, whatever you are choosing to seed, you can achieve it. You can achieve it. If it is in your vision, if it is in your dreams, it has been given to you for a reason. And I'm going to finish this week's episode on a quote. And the quote is by Ilania Van Zandt. I hope I said that correctly. Ilania Van Zandt. And she says, if you don't have a vision, you're going to be stuck in what you know. And the only thing you know is what you've already seen. Go out there and create something beautiful and big and new. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Higher Self Mastery. If something landed, moved you, or sparked a shift, I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman in your life that is also ready to rise. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, especially in these early days. It really helps others to find this work too. If you're craving deeper support and sisterhood, join my mailing list using the link below, where you'll be the first to receive free meditations, learn about up-and-coming retreats, and other ways that we can work together. Until next time, honor your truth and trust in the timing of your becoming.